All right, so I have been shocked by kind of some of the response that I've gotten from various people. I started a series called Exposure. I've only done 4 episodes. I do believe that it's going to be a really good series. You know, not to toot my own horn, but I like it. I like to show other photographers and showcase them and, you know, make them feel like they are on the right track. I don't want to ever like push anybody down and make them feel like they're not worthy or they're not valid. That's always that little thin line that we gotta ride, because you don't want to candy coat things as well. You don't want to tell people that they're the greatest thing in the world when they do have stuff to work on. We all have stuff to work on. My third video, the third one that I produced, had a young man named Rafe Grigar. I always think I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Hopefully I'm getting that right. Anyway, it has Rafe, and he is a great photographer, and he's very enthusiastic. We are now, I think, becoming good friends, and we bounce ideas back and forth to each other, and he liked some of my advice that I gave him, and he kind of pitched, hey, would you be interested in editing any of my photos? I've rarely edited other people's stuff because I don't want people to think that I'm the greatest and I'm this and I'm that. That's not what I'm about. I am literally just trying to be the best that I can be. And you know, a friend back in Oregon, Jason, many times would send me over kind of some proofs and stuff, and you know, ask me my opinions, and then, you know, we'd go back and forth, and I'd say, well, maybe try this to crop, or try this or that, or, you know, maybe you need to soften the skin, whatever it may be. So Rafe yesterday sent me over 2 folders of pictures to see what I would do with his edits. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to drag over to the bridge. Folder 1. I don't know how many pictures I'm going to edit. And Rafe, I'll probably edit them all for you. Live video, that can get really boring. Rafe and anybody else that's watching, I want you guys to see how I approach and edit. Whether it's my pictures or somebody else's, I'm going to approach it exactly the same. We're just going to go through and look. This looks like it's Rafe's wife here. So yeah, these look like they're GFX. So yeah, that's his medium format camera. Oh, and by the way, what I'm using, I'm not using Lightroom. This is another thing that I really want. So what I want to do is show people my method here. How do I go about editing pictures? And I don't use Lightroom. What I use is Bridge. That's just how I view the pictures. What you'll see here is it's similar looking to Lightroom. And what it is I believe Bridge is one piece of Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw is another piece to Lightroom. People are using Lightroom because they think it's easier, but it's actually harder, because then when you need to do Photoshop stuff, you have to export to Photoshop and then go back to Lightroom and back and forth. This is kind of one-stop shop. So anyway, I'm going to look at these photos. I'm just going to go through a few of them. So there's his wife. This picture here I actually looked at yesterday and edited a version just to test, and I may do that live now. This one I also looked at, and it looks so dark throughout here, but it's actually got, because he's using a medium format camera, there's all this data here. So when we open this up, you could actually see a lot there. I'll do that later. This picture here, I actually might edit this picture for Rafe because it has some of the classic things that I gave him a little hard time about, and as far as leading lines and your horizon lines and so on, etc. I'll show how I do that. I think that's going to be one that I'll edit for sure. That one is easy to make sacrifices on because he's already cut off part of her body. Okay, so those are off of his GFX system, his medium format. I'm going to pull over the other one so we can see those first. So he shoots with both medium format and he shoots with Canon systems, which is what I shoot with as well. So we're going to drag this over to Adobe Bridge, and we're going to just look. His subject matter is his wife a lot of times, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do the exact same thing. For everybody that's watching, don't think that I'm like gonna tear my buddy apart or anything like that, but I am going to try to have him get into my head as far as what I think when I see his images, and what emotions am I able to convey through his stuff, and what am I thinking? What if I took the picture, what mistakes did I make, and how can I correct them in post? Great shot there of his wife. I'll probably also get into a little bit of controversial stuff with generative fill. It's controversial because we always try to capture everything in camera, but unfortunately, sometimes that is not possible. So, we'll go through some of this stuff and go, okay, why would I use AI to help me with this picture? This picture I also kind of did a quick edit last night just to kind of show how I would do things. Great stuff here, Rafe. Really good stuff. Love it. Looks like he sent me over some challenging ones as well. So this one is very backlit. There's enough underexposed image of his wife that we could do it. Now, I'm assuming, because I just know kind of what his setup is, I'm assuming maybe the flash didn't go off here, or maybe he didn't bring a flash. That can be salvaged. So it looks like a self-portrait, him and his wife together, looking at the sunset. Love it. All right. So now he's moving from portraits to some night sky stuff. These shots here, he does a really good job at it. I don't know how much advice I could give him, but I'll definitely help him out. There's things that you could definitely do. Him and his wife together. A lot of the stuff, like I said, I can't edit all of them live because people would probably never watch the video. I'm going to take the best of the best I can. Really like this shot. I think that's got some promise. I probably would have stepped back just another foot, just because of cropping. Another one, he does a lot of stuff in water. Mind you, all these images are in RAW format, so they're very dull. That's how RAW format looks. If you're not familiar with the RAW format, it's your negative. It is as simple as it gets, but very, very complex as far as how much data is there. So, all right. Rafe, I love your stuff. Just gonna, give you some kudos here. Your concepts are really good. Your wife is a great model. Okay, here's a good example of compositional stuff that I want you to take into account. So, and a lot of this you could, just kind of figure out afterwards. But here, the sky in the very background is a little bit of a distraction. With some creative techniques, you could definitely salvage this image and make it look really cool. This next image right here, it's less of a distraction because once you crop this, it'll be fine. Even if you keep all that in the background, she's centered between the green bush here, so or trees, I guess. And yeah. This beautiful young lady on these steps. I love that. It's going to be a simple, clean edit. Okay. So I'm going to start with the simple, clean edit. I think that we'll start from easy to hard. Double tapping to get that open up Adobe Camera Raw. And that's what I use. And a lot of people don't understand that Adobe Camera Raw is the main part of Lightroom. That's what you're using. But it's also kind of, to me, the precursor to Photoshop. So what I usually do, Rafe, and you can do this in Photoshop, you can do it in Adobe Camera Raw or in Lightroom. I'll test and I'll just hit auto, which actually, like I said, this is going to be an easy edit. That just adjusted your thing. So I'm going to go back, see how flat this is. This being a raw photo, it's got that data in there, and then you can hit auto and it'll instantly kind of get your image toned out right and looking good. Now the problem here, this is where I'm going to keep beating this into your head, is this image without generative fill can't be an 8x10 and have the same look. And so 8x10 or 16x20, 4x5, it's all the same crop. When you have it cropped like that, something's going to get cut off. So I'm going to show you. If I go to 4x5 here, see how there's no headroom here and there's no feet room. So what you'd have to do, and it'll just kind of ruin the integrity of what you're going for, is you'd have to edit somewhere like this. Basically, that would be your crop, maybe even just a touch tighter, somewhere in that ballpark. It doesn't have the same emotion or same vibe. I would give that to my client, but you know, when you look at it in full mode, like, oh, I love it, I love this, this is great. I agree. I think it's great. The thing is people, when they do larger prints, or if they're posting to Instagram, up until I think recently, I think they just changed it to where it won't crop that stuff, but they're going after a 4x5 or an 8x10 look. So I'm just going to leave that right with the crop that's there, straightened out. Couple little things. This is one of those things that you don't have to worry about the horizon, because there is no actual horizon, but there are lines from these steps, and you have to make a decision which step is going to be your straight line. So I'm going to choose this one, and I'm just going to take my ruler, and that's what would be considered straight. If I took the step down, you'll see it'll probably make our model a little crooked. Take away a little bit of the headroom. I'm going to leave it as straight as possible. I'm going to go back up to that top one that's right by your head. Ultimately, that's probably where you want to be. This is where you have to figure out creatively what makes an image convey what you're trying to convey, you know. And if you want it super straight and super nice, you either before you take the picture, analyze like how much headroom you need to leave to make it an 8x10. So usually what I have to do is step back like another foot or two. Or if that's not a possibility, then I sacrifice that and I'll do more of a zoom. So anyway, this model that you have is gorgeous. She looks great. I'm going to say that's my crop. There's tons, those are just some of my favorites. There's tons of after products like Frono's Photo has. I bought all of his, I like it. And then there's a whole bunch down here that just come with Lightroom, Photoshop, and Adobe Camera Raw. I will actually just go through some of these. You could see like they have it broken down. This is medium skin. I think she's probably got what would be considered light skin, so we'll just go. And you could just pick out what gives you the jump off first. Like this one I think would be really nice. So anyway, if you want to do presets, that's what you do. All those come with Photoshop. I have one that's I favorited, and it's just under my portraits. I'm going to click that just so I don't, this picture here doesn't need me to do a whole lot. So anyway, I'm going to hit open. I got this into Photoshop, and the first thing I'm going to do, Rafe, is I'm going to go to my crop tool. I'm going to make sure that generative expand is open, and I'm going to change the ratio to 8x10. We are going to do this together to where you get just enough headroom that it looks good. I'm going to put her leg right here on the rule of thirds here. And her arm is as well. It's going to be a little bit of a gap here, so I'm going to pull her over and center her up right there. All right, so this, you'll notice the green area in here. That is what's going to generatively expand and make it look better. Now, sometimes because these images are really high definition, the generative is going to look a little soft. Now, since this is a background, I think that's okay. So I'm just going to hit go. I'm going to just hit the button generative expand, and we'll see what it does. It takes a minute or so, and it's going to give us 3 options here. I'm just going to click on different options. So the first option here has a little bit of distraction, pulls your eye over there. The second one is pretty clean. Third one is clean. Third one's too clean. I think it doesn't look as realistic. So we'll go to the second one. I'll say that's what I want, and boom. Why did I use generative expand and not content aware fill and stuff like that? And the answer is there's a lot of textures in here. Content aware fill sometimes will kind of repeat the patterns too much, whereas generative fill will actually try and create something fresh and new with that look that you got. So, all right, so I think that's good. So let's zoom in. I don't know if this is for like senior portraits or just some sort of lifestyle stuff. None of that really matters, although I do tend to tell stories. Now here's a couple other things. Well, first and foremost, I like the background. Actually, we'll show you how much it did. So the green is what was not expanded, then expanded. I like it. And then I usually create a copy of the background just to make sure that everything's good. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, Rafe, is I'm going to take out things that shouldn't be there. So she's got a bruise on her leg. She got a scuff on her knee. You know, I don't worry about usually like little moles and stuff like that because those technically should be there. Sometimes if they're too distracting, I'll get little flyaways. I think that looks good in this picture. And then again, like in her face here, these could be freckles. It could be acne. This looks like it could be a piece of acne. This little piece here could be a scar, could be a temporary thing. So this is where I need to choose where to get rid of things. And always one of those things where some people want everything left in, don't touch it at all, no Photoshop. Some people way overdo it. I try and ride right in the middle. I remove things that shouldn't be there, like this little hair that's going across her eye there. Yeah, it's not good. It looks like this is not a temporary blemish, so I'd get rid of some of the little blemishes. Yeah, you'll probably end up losing some of the freckles. I'm not going to worry about them, but so what I'm going to do is I use the remove tool. I think it's really, really good. And I'll just go over what I want to go bye-bye. You could set it to where this can, as soon as you touch it and let off, it'll delete, or you know, I have it set to where I could delete a few things at once. It doesn't change the output. It's your workflow. I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong there. I tend to try and get everything done at once. Sometimes it backfires on me. Anything that looks kind of like a skin blemish or something like that, I will ultimately just go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that one on her nose. These little freckles. Just because I don't know for sure if it's like a freckle or, you know, people cover it with makeup and stuff like that. Looks like she's got a little makeup on, so I'm gonna just help her makeup along. All right, so hit return. All these little blemishes, it's just in theory gonna go away. That's what we want. We want to make those blemishes go away. So that looks pretty good. Now we're gonna go in and get rid of the hair that goes over her eyes. The stuff that doesn't go over her eyes, the little flyaways, just leave it. It looks pretty natural. This one here, I'd get rid of because it's a distraction. This one, it's like she got a little tattoo there, so that point, and I'm just gonna make sure. Yeah, it looks like the blemishes on her legs went away. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna zoom back into her face. Yeah, it got rid of all those little flyaways. Okay, we're almost done, guys. I mean, I told you this one would be pretty easy. I am not sponsored by this tool, but I do think it's good. It's a tool called Beautify. There's a ton of free similar applications out there. This one is just, I bought a couple years ago. I use it, but you could literally get free ones that are going to be sooner. I'll go to sharpen eyes. But if you want beautify, it's still available as far as I know, and it's cheap. I think I spent like $20 or something like that. It's not very much, less than 50 for sure. So it does a layer right above everything, and it's got a burn layer, which actually doesn't do anything. I don't know why it does that. There's a light layer. If you click on that, and if your brush is set to white, and I have a pretty good feather of mine, I'm gonna just brush that right over her eyes, right over her mouth, and a little bit under the forehead, because light actually would hit all that. You know, you could, like, she's got texture in her hair, so you could go through here and mess around with that. Everything else is about the same tone, so I'm just not going to mess with that. Then you click on sharpness, go back in there, brush just a touch smaller, make her, this is going to be way over sharpened, by the way, but we're going to take it way down. So again, I'll go over the texture in her hair, and all you're doing is actually adding contrast in here. You're not really sharpening hardly anything. A little bit, but it's kind of tricking the eyes. I take the opacity of all of that down to like 40%. Like when you see it, it looks pretty natural. When you take it off, you're like, oh wow, that did a lot. But if you did it at 100%, it'd look really crunchy, really bad, and we don't want that. So yeah, that's pretty good. One, and then I'm going to go, this is the last thing I'm going to do on here. Again, you don't have to use beautify. There's a ton of programs that'll do this. Skin smoothing is, for me, essential to give my clients. When you skin smooth though, you could overdo it and then they look like aliens or plastic. This piece here is called plastic skin, and I use that specifically to show you how far it'll go. And this one is pretty nice. Even at the furthest, it still looks fairly natural. But then to taper back. So I'm going to go to her legs first, and you'll notice there's just, you know, like little goosebumps and skin imperfections and stuff like that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to brush over this. It's going to make everything smooth and creamy, but it's still kind of trying to take that natural approach to it. You don't have to be precise with this, because like I said, you're going to taper it down and it'll look very natural. You notice like the vein in her foot right there just went away, and that's good. Usually those are the type of things that my wife or other models that I work with will be like, I don't like the veins in my hands or this or that. So then, yeah, I'll just go over these things. She's got a little fuzz on her arms, you know, little hair. Go right over it. It's okay. Your clients are paying you to make them look the best that you can make them look. And so getting rid of little things that are not necessarily imperfections but are not helping your picture is good. Alright, so you'll see like in her neck here, there's natural texture in there. And same up here on her forehead. And brush just a touch smaller. With older clients, now this is a young client, but with older clients, going over under their eyes is really important, because we all start to get wrinkles under here, smile lines, frown lines, and it'll be super subtle. I don't know if you can see that, but it just takes those highlights and smooths them out just a little bit. And put that down. I'm going to go to whiten eyes, same type of thing, but I'm going to go over her teeth just a touch. And this is white eyes. I do the eyes just to get the white parts of the eyes to shine, and go over the color parts too. One more trick, and then this file will be done. Your camera actually picks up a lot more data than what we even realize. All cameras do. And even the basic ones. But one thing that I like to do, especially when people have really pretty eyes and color and texture, is I will take a paintbrush, get a new layer right here, and I will just take white and I'll paint white right over the colored textured part of the eye. And if you've never seen this process, you're probably wondering, why am I painting white over the eyes? You're going to find out in 1 second. Touch of catch light there. So she probably looks pretty funky right here, I admit it. Go over to your blend modes and go all the way down to soft light. See the difference right there? Now, I didn't add anything. What you're doing is you're saying that there's light in here and light picks up color. So I'm going to zoom in on her eyes and you can see she's got texture in here and she's got some color. I painted just white over and then it brought some of that color back out. Now this I also take down to about 40%. This I think looks very natural. If you look at it, zoom out. Her eyes have a shine to them and then without they don't. So I think it looks fairly natural. I'll zoom in and show you. Without, with, looks like there's a little light shining in their eyes. Sometimes when you're positioning a strobe light, or if you're using the sun and all natural light, it's just not hitting into the eyes enough to where, you know, it's got that look that you're going after. The thing is it actually did capture light in there. And so by using soft light, it brings it back out. I think that's good. You can copy that. And if you want to really make it intense, doing another layer on top. Some people really like that. And this image is done. There's a couple little things that I'm going to show you guys, and then we'll go from there. So what I always do for mine, and this is just so Rafe knows which ones I edited, which ones he did, I'll usually do a white border around. I have a little action that I made. You can set it however you want, of course. All right, and so let's pixel peep for a second. All this looks great. Her skin looks good. Hair looks good. Rafe did all the right things in this picture, except he could have stepped back a foot. Because he didn't, we had to use generative fill to salvage that same framing. So that's why I usually suggest to step back a little bit, get a little bit more of that background in, because you can always crop. You just, up until recently, you couldn't like bring background back. Thankfully, Photoshop does allow for that, and yeah, so we have the ability to create what was basically there, and that's not the important part of the picture. So when you looking at the outside of the picture, that's not really what you're going after. You're going after the ability to focus on your subject. And sometimes you need some background to guide your eyes into that subject. Sometimes you don't. But it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. In this case, Photoshop did a pretty good job at bringing it back. It didn't change the integrity of the picture, and really that's it. So I'm going to go save as. Whole different pose, a whole different vibe, a whole different style of edit. Technically a different crop. I mean, even if you did an 8x10, we're going to try and figure out what is level. I really like this picture. I like the shallow depth of field. I like the background is very compressed. It's a little underexposed. So I'm going to go to auto and just see what it does. I think it did really good with the skin tones. But now the background doesn't have that mood and that vibe. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit background on your mask. If you don't know what masks are, you should learn them. Photoshop, Lightroom, Camera Raw, they're all really good at masking things. You see Everything that's green here is masked out. She is not going to be touched now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring the exposure down. I'm also going to cool it down just a little bit, down 20%. And we can take the highlights down in the background. It doesn't do a ton because it's only doing the super highlights, and there's not a lot in the background. And I'm going to take the shadows down too, just a little bit, because we really want her to pop. So there's that. I'm going to go down to texture, take the texture all the way down to 40-ish, clarity down, and dehaze. I'm going to dehaze it a little bit too, which you'll see starts to brighten it up again. If you go to pause dehaze, it looks way too sharp and chunky. We want to make this background go a little hazy, so we're going to do negative dehaze. And I'm going to take the blacks up just a little bit, and then we're going to do that exposure down just a little bit more, shadows down just a little bit more. That's good. I'm not a fan of backgrounds that draw your eye away from the subject. This being not a nice symmetrical look, and there's nothing very interesting. Come in a little tighter. What am I keeping? What am I not? So now I just got rid of that sky that was bugging me. It didn't offer anything to the picture. And this is not an attack on Rafe's photography abilities. This is something I would do to my own pictures over and over again, because sometimes in the moment you don't notice the background, or you don't notice the things that are distracting because you're seeing it in a millisecond. If you are sitting here as an armchair quarterback here and you're like, oh, I do this, I do that. Well, that's good. It's good that you can, and it'll train your brain to notice that stuff when you are shooting. But right now, I wasn't there. I wasn't at this photo shoot. So, all right, I'm going to bring the warmth up in her skin just a touch. I'm going to bring the shadows up just a touch. Just a half stop exposure just to make her really pop. And then, because I do have those tools to smooth her skin, I'm going to actually add texture, which if you don't have skin smoothing that looks natural, this will actually hurt your picture, but since I do, I got that. And then I'm going to dehaze just a touch, that's going to add a little bit of contrast in her, especially since we did some negative dehaze in the background. It's going to just have some depth here. So, all right, so I think that looks all in all pretty darn good. I'm going to show you guys without any of those presets what to do. So I think her skin tones are fairly good and everything else. You can also add like a radial gradient, as if you can see where the sun is kind of kissing her body here. It could be artificial light that's doing that, but it's supposedly the look of the sun. And you could up the warmth of that, and you could up the exposure on that area there just a little bit. You don't want to go too much. You don't want it to be too noticeable. Bring down the texture, and then bring that haze down. And sometimes that just gives that nice glowy effect. I'm going to show you without it, with it. This time we'll do it with a little artificial light right there. And then I'm going to actually add and do a little bit more. There's very subtle before, after. Probably if I didn't show the tutorial, nobody probably even noticed that was even done, but it does make a difference. So if you look before, after, just kind of makes that background have a little more interest in it. All right, so again, I'm going to open this up in Photoshop. I'm going to go into your wife's face here and get my remove tool. And this one's probably a little more controversial, but she has a piercing scar here. I'm going to click on that, remove that. She's got a couple little skin blemishes that are slight, and since I'm removing a couple things, I might as well do that. There's a little wrinkle here, barely. She's got great skin. I need to specify this too. Your wife looks great. Anything I'm doing, there's nothing wrong with her. I'm just literally, I'm looking at as she's a client and what would she want. She got look like a little scrape or something there. I'm not going to remove all these little freckles, but if there's one that just stands out, or if there's a light patch of skin, just go through and see. I'm going to leave her ear piercings in. Okay, so you hit go, let it do its thing. These are things that are built into Photoshop. Lightroom does have them. It doesn't work as well as Photoshop. So that's why I use Photoshop. Since I'm zoomed in on her face, add a layer. What are we going to do? Bring the light back into her eyes. So we're just going to add light right there. There's good catch lights from the light he was using, so I don't really need to go crazy there. Okay, now she looks like she's demonic. We're going to go over and we're going to hit soft light. Take that down to like 40, maybe 50. I think in this one I can do 50. Just brings those eyes back. All right. Again, get yourself a skin retouching tool. They're free. I'm using Beautify version 2. There may be a newer version out, but yeah, we're going to utilize what we got. But I did look last night on the Photoshop, and you can just download things that are very similar. It's going to do the same thing. All I'm going to do is take a brush and go over. So she got a little peach fuzz. My wife does too. I go over that and it just disappears. We're going to bring it a little bit back. We're not going to make her plastic. She's not going to look like a Barbie doll. She's just going to look like a model. Very natural, very clean. This is normal skin retouching. This is the stuff that a lot of photographers pay other people to do. But you could do it yourself with tools that are readily available, and you just go for it. You don't want to go over skin that's tattooed here. I'll show you why. Like, it makes that tattoo look dull. See that? So I just go to the edge. I will go over like the wrinkles on the elbow. It'll soften those up just a little bit. Sometimes makes it to where our eyes don't concentrate on the things that are not important. Just go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, and then once I take it down, and there's also a weird highlight back there that kind of gets smoothed out. And what that's going to do is it's going to smooth things out just enough, but you can still see texture. You know, you're not 100% getting rid of it. You're just softening that look. And you know, that's at 500%. You know, that's nobody's going to be looking at. But when they look at it this size, they're going to say, "Oh, wow, that is a beautiful picture." I'm going to go to sharpen eyes. This will be the last thing I have to do to this picture. This one's not very difficult. Go just above her eyes, boom, boom, on her mouth, highlights in the hair. And this is going to look a little bit much, a little bit on her clothes. I go over her tattoos with this, because this is going to work pretty much the same as painting white over everything. You know, wherever you want that light to hit, right? Because here in a minute, that's not going to matter. You're not going to be able to see that. And maybe you saw things a little bit brighter and stuff. It's okay, you know. So just to sharpen down, sharpen the eyes, go over the hair, go over the tattoos, go over little shiny things and textures. And then again, we're going to take that down to like 40%. And it's just barely there, guys. It's not going to dramatically change the picture, but enough that people are going to go, "Oh, that's nice. Ooh, that's really nice." You know, 9 times out of 10 with my wife, if I show her, you know, pictures side by side, she's going to pick the one that I tweaked a little bit and made things just pop. But if I don't tell you what I did, it's not that obvious, you know. But yeah, so I think that's there. That image. You could always go up to auto tone if you're worried that like maybe you went too far with an edit. A lot of times if you go to auto tone, it tapers it down to a point and you could decide which one you like better. I actually like my edit because it's a little warmer, so that's good. Now we're going to do my white border. Of course, I did black because why would it do it the way I want? There we go. Let's save as RG. There's the sexy couple right there. I'm not going to edit this one live, but I'll tell you what I would do to it really quick. This one, the composition's just wrong on it, and you have to use generative fill to get it to look right. And so I will edit that. At the very end of the video, I'll throw in what I did, but I'm not going to have you guys watch that. Okay. Okay, so this one right here, Rafe, this is where I'm gonna pick on you a little bit. I think the composition's good. I think the horizon's off, and it's such a big file because it's medium format. You got flexibility to bring all this background back, but you don't need it. So I'm going to hit auto just to see what it sees. This is where it sees all this texture and everything. It takes away your dramatic lighting, which is not good. So I'm going to try that. And here I'm going to fix your horizon. This right here is pretty spot on for most of it. This post obviously is broken and twisted. Things are lined up pretty good on the rule of thirds. All right, so I'm going to do that. And then down here under geometry, you can actually see if it'll automatically do things. Yeah, I think that works. So what we did is we hit horizontal and vertical lines to try and make them as straight as possible. And that put her head right in the corner, which I like. Alright, so that's fixing your horizon lines. There's things that don't matter in this picture, and there's things that do matter. I'm going to start with what does matter, your subject. So obviously your wife is posing here. I'm going to hit subject under the mask, and I'm going to bring her exposure up like a half stop. Somewhere in there. I'm going to take the highlights down just a touch because we're going to bring the shadows up a little bit. And just a little bit because we're going to drift some of that light, or we're going to create the look that some of this light from the candle is drifting over. And that's what's illuminating her. I'm sure that was probably your goal with artificial lighting. And luckily between your artificial lighting and the medium format camera, it has a lot of data to be clear. So we're going to just warm this up quite a bit. Maybe go up to 50. We're going to bring the exposure up just a little bit. One stop. And I'm going to saturate it a little bit. I'm going to dehaze it. Negative dehaze by about 30%. I'm going to take the clarity down by 20. Texture probably about the same, 20-ish. And then I'm going to subtract subject, which will give me a little bit more flexibility in what's going on here. I'm going to turn the feather up to 100%. That way it gets soft and not so crunchy. And it can fall off right behind her a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to take and we're going to get this background to go away, some of it. So we invert that. I'm going to take the mask down on this one, 50%, and I'm going to subtract our subject. Now we're just going to drop that exposure way, way down. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to subtract that exposure down, maybe make the feather just a little. Then I'm pulling the blacks up. I don't know if you guys caught that, but I'm pulling the blacks up just a little bit. Now I can see that this light is bugging me a little bit more. I'm going to bring that just a little bit down. So it looks like it's affecting it, but it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. So that's about where I'd have it. And so you could stack, like I could do another radial, maybe it's a little smaller right here. We could make that exposure come up even more, blow it up even more, turn the lights up even more, and you know, this basically just lights that up just a touch more. Sometimes that's a nice look. Okay. All right, once we have that into Photoshop, out of Camera Raw, there's a couple of things that bug me just a little bit. They're very small, nitpicky things. This kind of takes away from the picture a little bit. Generative expand, see what it'll do. See if we can get that little edge of her shawl to go down a little further. Generative fill, get rid of this. It looks like it's a rock or something that's under here. It just distracts me just a little bit. It doesn't add to the picture at all. So let's see what it comes up with. Just some real black blink stuff there. All right. So again, final touches on this. I go in. So I'm going to go in and use my Sharpen Eyes tool, which, remember, that just lightens things and adds some contrast here and there. It does give that sharp look, but it's fooling the eyes is what it's doing. And you can do this in lots of different ways. This way is just quick and dirty for me. It's really easy. I'm going to actually lighten quite a bit of her face here, her hair, her boot a little bit, kind of where I think that light would technically be hitting. I always sharpen my clothing and little detail work here and there, because once I taper it down, it's not super noticeable. It's just like, wow, how'd you get your stuff to pop so much? And it's really directing the eye to those important things. So, all right. So that is it on that. I'm gonna go, actually, I'll go to the light itself. I'm gonna make some of that pop just a little bit. And we're gonna sharpen just the bottom parts and the top part here. The rest are gonna look a little glowy. Okay. Again, we're going to take and bring that opacity down, about 50% this time. A little bit more aggressive. Yeah. And the reason why is because this is a little dimmer. There's a lot less light. It's supposed to look like night. And once I hit plastic skin and we go back and smooth over just a little bit of her skin and stuff, then that drops that down a little bit, drops that light. So you could be real rough with this because the skin's not really the feature here. So if you go over a little bit past the skin, it doesn't really matter because the background just starts to go away, which is fine. fine. You don't want to go over the hair because that's the opposite of what we just did. Should have a whole lot of skin showing. So, but here, you know, just got a little bit of rough skin just because the light that Rafe was using caught the glimmer. You know, that's what light does, is it accentuates things for good and for bad. And a lot of times when people use external flashes and stuff, the light's a little harsh on our skin. So going through and softening that up is good. That's why there's all these filters nowadays for TikTok and everything, where it makes people look like aliens, because people are trying to get rid of that artificial harshness that happens either for bright lights or not enough light or the wrong angle light. You know, sometimes you just have to go back in. That's not what our eyes are seeing, because we're seeing everything in real life. But when you freeze something in a millisecond, it catches every little detail. All right, so I'm gonna take that down to 40%. Let me hit the frame button. Save as. All right, so there's a lot more we could do. You know, these are literally quick and easy edits that you don't need anything special to do. You might want to get like a plugin for Photoshop, like Beautify or one of those, but they're not needed. You could get them for free. I'm going to go through and look through his pictures one more time in here, see if there's anything else that we want to do a quick edit on. I really like this one. I already edited it, so I'll throw that up as well and show you guys what I came up with there, but I'm not going to edit it again. I like this one a lot too. I think, Rafe, what I would do on this one, I'm just going to open it really quick. I'm not going to do the full edit, but what I would do on this one is get aggressive with the cropping. So anyway, what I would do here, Rafe, and I'm not going to edit this whole thing, but I'm going to just ignore the fact that you were trying to get her whole body in. Maybe do something along these lines. So I would probably go in to about this realm, and then I would go in and do all my edits, like if you need to, and yeah, call it a day. So that's it. I'm going to edit this video down, make it, you know, somewhat watchable, and then I'm going to throw up some of the finished products, and then I'm going to send them to Rafe, and hopefully he likes them as well. So anyway, take it easy, guys. Peace.